All right, we'll do our opening chant. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Again, so glad to be with you this morning. Welcome to this talk. November is a month for the study of Raja Yoga, a spiritual path often called the yoga of meditation. As a Raja Yogi, you use ancient, proven spiritual techniques to quiet your mind and gain control of your attention. Regular daily practice of Raja Yoga increases your ability to concentrate and may lead to meditation. This meditation can unite you with the Divine Presence, the source of your being, and liberate you from the cycle of rebirth and death. Raja Yogis call this state of liberation kaivalya, independence of all limitation. So this morning's talk, the last talk for this year on Raja Yoga, is titled, Are You the Reflected Glory? Last week, toward the end of Sunday's talk, this was read. It is a glorious destiny to be a member of the human race. There is no way of telling people that they are all walking around shining like the sun. It is a glorious destiny to be a member of the human race. There is no way of telling people that they are all walking around shining like the sun. This is from a vision experienced by Thomas Merton, a Trappist monk, mystic, and spiritual teacher. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, toward the end of chapter 40, we read, the Master says, when through realization the world vanishes, only the jivas, that is to say, so many egos, remain. Each ego may be likened to a pot. Suppose there are 10 pots filled with water, and the sun is reflected in them. How many suns do you see? A devotee replied, 10 reflections. Besides, certainly there exists the real sun. Master, all right, suppose you break 9 pots. How many suns do you see now? Devotee, 1 reflected sun, but there certainly exists the real sun. The Master then asks Girish Ghosh, what remains when the last pot is broken? Girish, that real sun, sir. Master, no, what remains cannot be described. What is remains. How will you know there is a real sun unless there is a reflected sun? How will you know there is a real sun unless there is a reflected sun? We are that reflection. We are that reflection. of the real sun. Swami Vivekananda, in the evening hymn, translated as Breaker of this World's Chain, toward the end of that hymn, he wrote, "Speech cannot hold thee, nor mind, yet without thee we think not nor speak. It is that reflection of the divine glory in us that allows us to live, think, speak." And Swami Prabhavananda said, Swami Prabhavananda was my teacher and the head of the Vedanta Society of Southern California from 1930 to 1976. Swami Prabhavananda said, "The chosen ideal," by which he meant that aspect of the divine being that attracts your heart, "the chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. Learn to feel that living presence. And that is the purpose of spiritual practice, to translate what the Swami says as a concept for us. You are that divine being, no different. Learn to feel that, to translate that into that feeling, that sense of the living presence within you. Therefore, you are a reflection of that which cannot be described, as Sri Ramakrishna said. You are a reflection of that which cannot be described, so say these saints and teachers. What this may mean for you as a spiritual aspirant is what we will explore and discuss this morning. William Blake, the great English mystic, poet, and artist. Those of you who don't know the work of William Blake, you might want to take a look at it. It's really quite remarkable. William Blake wrote, "It is a part of our duty to God and man to take due care of his gifts, though we ought not to think of ourselves more highly, yet we ought to think of ourselves as highly as immortals ought to think. Though we ought not to think more highly of ourselves, yet we ought to think as highly of ourselves as immortals ought to think." That shining, eternal reflection of the divine presence. First thought, as the reflected glory of the divine presence, you can be a great gift to yourself, which is the Atman taking human form, human birth, and to your sisters and brothers in every form. As the reflected glory of the divine presence, you can be a great gift to yourself and to your sisters and brothers in every form. As Swami Vivekananda said, "Where shall we go to find God, if not in our own hearts and in every living being?" Here's a metaphor for the shining reflection that you are. This is from Nikola Tesla. If you want to know where this was found, you can find it in the notes. They'll be online. In 1891, Nikola Tesla gave a lecture for the members of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers in New York City. Mind you, this is 1891, 9 years before the beginning of the 20th century. In 1891, Nikola Tesla gave a lecture for the members of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers in New York City, where he made a striking demonstration. In each hand, he held a gas discharge tube an early version of the modern fluorescent bulb. The tubes were not connected to any wires, but nonetheless they glowed brightly during his demonstration. Tesla explained to the awestruck attendees that the electricity was being transmitted through the air by two metal sheets, one on either side of the stage. Tesla went on to speculate how one might increase the scale of this effect to transmit wireless power and information over a broad area, perhaps the entire Earth. We are experiencing, as we sit here on this Zoom connection, exactly what Tesla was speculating about. He foresaw what we are experiencing this very moment. Maybe not the details, but certainly the concept. Now, why is that a metaphor? Listen to Sri Krishna about the source of your radiance. This is from chapter 9, verse 4 of Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna speaking. This entire universe is pervaded by me in that eternal form of mine which is not manifest to the senses. Although I am not within any creature, all creatures exist within me. That is my divine mystery. You must try to understand its nature. My being sustains all creatures and brings them to birth, but has no physical contact with them. So I'm going to read that again because this now becomes the translation of the metaphor of Tesla's two tubes held in his hands, glowing without any connection to anything. The electricity was not in them. In other words, it was not connected to them, but it was causing them to glow. You are shining, you are glowing for this reason. Sri Krishna speaking. This entire universe is pervaded by me in that eternal form of mine which is not manifest to the senses. Although I am not within any creature, all creatures exist within me. That is my divine mystery. You must try to understand its nature. My being sustains all creatures. My being, verb, my being, my action, my being sustains all creatures and brings them to birth, but has no physical contact with them. You shine. Now, of course, this is the talk again, not Krishna's, still speaking. You shine like Tesla's tubes. No physical contact, but the energy of the divine being is in you and all around you. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus Christ puts it like this. This is from the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus Christ speaking. This is Logion 50 of the Gospel of Thomas. If they say to you, where do you come from? Say to them, we have come from the light, from the place where the light came into being by itself, established itself, and appeared in their image. Precisely the same idea that Krishna is speaking about. Speaking to his disciples, Christ says, if they say to you, where do you come from? Say to them, we have come from the light, from the place where the light came into being by itself, established itself, and appeared in their image. That is you sitting right where you're sitting this moment. The light embodied in this image. So why do we not, at this moment, clearly see our reflection of that mystery, that divine light? And now a metaphor from here. It is because we live in a hall of mirrors. I hope you've all been in a hall of mirrors to experience what it's like. It is one of the most amazing and startling and confusing experiences. You soon lose all sense of where you are, even who you are, because there's so many reflections. You don't even know which of them, you lose your sense of yourself. Which is this is real and which of it is a reflection? We live in a hall of mirrors. This is a metaphor for a Vedantic concept that is very relevant to the practices of Raja Yoga. The 5 sheaths. These are the mirrors. 5 sheaths, koshas. This is from Hinduism.com. The structure of man can be divided into 5 material layers, enveloping Atman, the indwelling soul. Atman is the core of your being. It is represented by the mystic symbol of Om. The 5 layers of matter are like 5 concentric circles around the symbol. They are called sheaths or koshas in Sanskrit. The 5 sheaths, pancha koshas, are the food sheath, annamaya kosha, the vital air sheath, pranamaya kosha, the mental sheath, manamaya kosha, the intellectual sheath, vijnanamaya kosha, and the bliss sheath, anandamaya kosha. Each of these mirrors of your shining primal energy, the Atman, has its own, sometimes competing priorities. Now, if you want to understand what I mean, just think about your Annamaya Kosha, your food body, saying to you, oh, I want that to eat. And your mind sheath, your Manamaya Kosha says, oh, no, that's not good for you to eat. And so there's an argument between your mind sheath and your body sheath. And so you end up eating it anyway. And then in jumps your pranamaya kosha saying, well, since you ate that, you need to do some exercise. And your annamaya kosha says, oh, I'm tired now after eating. I don't want to do any exercise. And so this is what I mean by hall of mirrors. All this conversation, all this distraction going on. We very rarely reach, even because of all this superficial distraction, we very rarely reach the Vijnanamaya kosha, which is the part of us that can make the most intellectually satisfying and appropriate decisions, the buddhi, the discrimination, let alone the Anandamaya kosha, which is that closest, that sheath closest to the Atman, that is the most brilliant reflection. It's only through the practices of both karma yoga, well, all of the yogas, but especially Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga. So each of these mirrors of your shining primal energy, the Atman, has its own, sometimes competing priorities. This is due to your inborn ignorance, Maya. Notice that each of the koshas has Maya embedded in its name. Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manamaya Kosha, they are part of our primal ignorance. They are part of our misunderstanding of who we truly are, which is an action and experience machine created by the Atman for its own purposes. So our confusion, our misunderstanding is due to your inborn ignorance, Maya, and its children, selfishness and desire. So, like in a hall of mirrors, the Atman's reflection is multiple, distorted, confusing, at times even frightening. That's why we experience life as we do, because of all of these competing priorities of these various aspects of ourselves. In fact, these are aspects of the divine, but we don't see them as such because we think of ourselves as an individual, separate being. The practices of the first 6 limbs of Patanjali's yoga, Patanjali's Raja Yoga, slowly and slowly, I'll start that again. The practices of the first 6 limbs of Patanjali's Raja Yoga, slowly and slowly during years of persistent effort, bring these 5 mirrors into alignment. That's why I use the metaphor of hall of mirrors, because once these mirrors are aligned, all directed toward your priority, the realization of God, the realization of your true original nature of Atman, according to the practices of Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga. When these 5 mirrors are brought into alignment, then something remarkable happens. Then the Atman's reflection becomes more defined, clearer, and you begin to see yourself reflected there, as Thomas Merton saw you, shining like the sun. As this happens over time, you also lose that aching, lonely sense of separation that is the greatest of life's miseries. So just very briefly, I'm going to go over how these 5 mirrors of ourself, our true self, the Atman, are aligned by Raja Yoga. First, through the yamas, we dissolve our adversarial, selfish relationship with the world. We stop putting ourselves first and start thinking of the effect of our thoughts, our speech, and our action on others. And we restrain ourselves from the things that are mentioned as the yamas. Being harmless, not lying, not stealing, and so on. The second of these first 2 limbs of yoga is niyamas, the observances. As we dissolve our selfish relationship with the world and the universe, with ourself, we replace it with a higher form. These are through the observances of the yamas. Study, reflection, reading the scriptures, practicing mantra or some other form of spiritual discipline, spiritual concentration, and then offering ourselves and all we do and are to the divine. Then we go into having begun this part of the process of the 6 limbs of yoga, we go into the others. We learn how to sit, and we learn how to calm the body so that we can practice concentration and meditation. We learn to withdraw ourselves from the sense world. We learn to stop thinking of ourselves as the senses. That we see that these are simply a way of interpreting what has been created for our experience. And we learn to withdraw our attention from them so that they don't continually distract us. We learn to control our prana. Now, learning to control your prana, there are deliberate practices, pranayama. The Ramakrishna order swamis advise against practicing pranayama unless you do it under the guidance of a very experienced and qualified teacher. They say that doing the other things that are part of the niyamas and part of your other spiritual practices automatically align that mirror, that pranamaya kosha, they automatically align that with your higher purposes. So any of you who wish to discuss pranayama and its uses with me privately, just give me a call or send me an email and we'll talk about that. Because it is one of the more controversial aspects of the way the Ramakrishna order swamis teach. So 1 and 2, yamas, niyamas; 3, asana; 4, pranayama, control of your life force; pratyahara, withdrawal from the senses. Then these are all done together. These aren't something that you do sequentially. It's enumerated sequentially by Patanjali, but it's meant to be done all together. The next of the practices is dharana. Dharana is the practice of concentration. And there is a whole long, great lesson plan for how to practice concentration and what may attract your mind and your temperament to the practice of concentration in chapter 2 of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So many different forms of concentration are there. Some of them involve mantra, some of them involve visualization, some of them involve ideation, focusing on a particular idea until it opens itself to you and you understand it deeply. So there are many, many of these. Now, dharana, the practice of contemplation and concentration, slowly and slowly manifests as meditation, the 6th limb of yoga. So these are the way that we go about aligning, because all of these koshas and their purposes become aligned by our efforts to control them. It isn't a deliberate, you may deliberately think about them and think about them that way. But if you just do what Sage Patanjali recommends, there is an automatic alignment of each of the koshas with your higher purpose, which is self-realization, God realization. We need not talk about the seventh and eighth limbs of yoga, as Patanjali says. The first limbs are purushakara, self-effort. The seventh and eighth are something that happens to you when you have become accomplished in the first six. So I'm going to just review then what I said. Raja Yoga, slowly and slowly, during years of persistent effort, brings these five mirrors, koshas, into alignment. And so the Atman's reflection becomes more defined, clearer, and you begin to see yourselves reflected as Thomas Merton saw you, shining like the sun. As this happens over time, you also lose that aching, lonely sense of separation that is the greatest of life's miseries. Why? Because you identify not with the koshas, even the bliss kosha. Your identity, you begin to understand as you see that reflection clearer, more and more clearly, more and more brilliantly. You know that is yourself. That is who you are. And so though the mind will continue to intrude, if you want to know what I mean by this, read the last two chapters of Adi Shankaracharya's Vivekachudamani, where he describes in loving and careful detail how we move in and out of greater and greater understanding until we finally abide there. But as he says, and as will be affirmed from here, it is worth the effort, because as you make that progress over time, you lose that aching, lonely sense of separation that is the greatest of life's miseries. We get a glimpse of why in this poem by Hafiz about how the divine being, the beloved, as he calls it, thinks of you, the individual, seemingly separate Atman, which then manifests these five koshas and seems to be a separate being. So to get a glimpse of why that misery ends, listen to this poem by Hafiz about how the divine being, the beloved, thinks of you. The poem is titled, Each Soul Completes Me. My beloved said, my name is not complete without yours. I thought, how could a human's worth ever be such? And God, knowing all our thoughts, and all our thoughts are innocent steps on the path, then addressed my heart. God revealed a sublime truth to the world when he sang, I am made whole by your life. Each soul completes me. And because that's so beautiful and so relevant to what we're talking about this morning, I'm going to repeat it. Each soul completes me. My beloved said, my name is not complete without yours. I thought, How could a human's worth ever be such? And God, knowing all our thoughts, and all our thoughts are innocent steps on the path, then addressed my heart. God revealed a sublime truth to the world when he sang, I am made whole by your life. Each soul completes me. For those of you who want to find that poem and others like it by 11 other saints, it's from the book Love Poems from God. The translator is Daniel Ladinsky. So before I go on to the joyous conclusion of this talk, are there any comments or questions? This is the best part. This is where we study together the art of spirituality and share with one another who we are and what this gives rise to in us. So please be generous with one another and with the congregation as a whole. What questions or comments do you have?
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
What way the Anandamaya Kosh differs from the Brahman?
Say it again, please.
In what way the Anandamaya Kosha differs from the Brahman?
That Anandamaya Kosha is not, it's not Atman or Brahman. It is the closest to, it said 5 concentric circles. It's the one closest to, surrounding the Atman. That is within our heart, it is said by the Upanishads and in the Gita, that the Atman resides in our hearts, not as a physical presence, but a spiritual presence. And so the Anandamaya Kosha, this is why the word Maya is embedded in its name. It is part of the dream of existence. The Atman is existence itself, Satchidananda. So that's the differentiation. It is the one nearest to. And so when we encounter it through our spiritual practices, we think, oh, I am close. Yes, indeed, you are close, but not there yet. Thank you for that question, Shama. Very good question.
Brother Shankara.
Yes, Uma.
When you were talking about fluorescent bulb, how without direct connection with electricity is still shining and gives light. In that context, I was thinking of the dear ones whom we have lost, people who are no more in this world. They are still existing within us in the same way that the fluorescent light gives light, that spiritual energy, even though we are departed, the souls of the departed people still live within us. With the spiritual energy is indirectly working through us. That's what I connected.
Yes, you're quite right. As Vivekananda said, though we don't know it, we are all together at one point, those who are still present and those who are not. He wrote this in a letter to a friend about someone who had departed. We are all together at one point. And so that divine energy is animating all of it. What appears to be living and what appears to be dead. As Sri Krishna says to us in the Gita in chapter 2, there is no such thing as death.
Yes.
We take off this garment, we're without a garment for a while, we put on another garment. Where would we go? As Vivekananda asks his friend in the letter, where would we go? We're all together at one point. So thank you, Uma. That's a very, very, and isn't that sweet and reassuring to think that way?
Thank you.
Anything else, please?
Brother Shankara, this is Sundar here.
Yes, Sundar.
Brother, how much do you think it's possible for the normal person living in a household life to practice Raja Yoga?
Well, it depends on your priorities, dear. It simply depends on your priorities. The first two limbs, yamas and niyamas, are very practical for you. The others, it just depends on where you want to put your time. Swami Ashokananda once pounded, so he was the head of the Vedanta Society of Northern California and a fiery personality. He once pounded on the rostrum. This was in the 1950s when television had begun to be prevalent. He pounded on the rostrum one morning, and said, "Don't tell me you don't have time to practice meditation. You watch television." He was talking about people's priorities. You can hear this recording, by the way, if you want to go to contact the Vedanta Society of San Francisco. There's a recording of this talk. Don't tell me you don't have time for meditation. You watch television. So all of the practices, all of the spiritual practices are a matter of our priorities. What do we want from life? How satisfied are we to live the life of samsara? And how much do we want to escape? As Swami Prabhavananda once said, he was accused, so to speak, of giving a talk that preached escapism. Swami Prabhavananda said, "Well, I suppose that's true, but I cannot for the life of me think why I would not want to escape." So there are no dogmas, Sundar. There are no doctrines. There are no musts. It's simply a matter of your heart, and how that heart is reflected through your mind and the priorities that you set. So it's as much or as little as is appropriate for you, keeping in mind that Sri Ramakrishna said, we must never force things. We must not be hypocritical or falsely pious, that everything happens at the right time. Any follow-up question to that, Sundar?
No questions, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for a very good question. That is very, very relevant. Anyone else?
I had a thought about the Hall of Mirrors.
Yes, Divya.
I was just thinking of, like we're on a screen and it is like a hall of mirrors. And we don't think about it, but a video is literally a series of pictures over time. And it's like you're not who you were a frame ago.
Exactly.
And it's just fascinating to think of it And we do live in a hall of mirrors, because what creates the video, it's the camera, but what camera does is it manipulates light.
Yep.
And then you have the vibrations of the whatever. I mean, how does an image appear on the screen? Just goes on and on. That's an image. But then, you know, behind it all is the body, which is itself, going back to the opening metaphor you started with from Sri Ramakrishna about the pot, the different pots and the reflections. I love that. I love that part.
Yeah.
And it's just the unity of all reflections. At the same time, it would be folly to be attached to, you know, a frame of a video.
Exactly.
That,
Exactly.
you know, that who you were before. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. This is why Jesus said in his shortest teaching, he said, be passersby. Don't stop at this image or that experience or this moment. Be passersby. Don't be attached. That's not why the Atman created this. Not to get stuck. But we do. And when we do, these are the thoughts that can help us be unstuck. Thank you, Divya. That was just perfect.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Uma.
the same line of metaphor that you used of the hall of mirrors,
Yes.
so perfect, because when I think of it, how it distorts images through the manipulation of light, as she said.
Yes.
But similarly, I don't know exactly who wrote, but I remember the line of a poem in my language which says, mind is the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
It reflects everything that you see and what is registered, whether you are aware of it or not. And sometimes, even when something is shown very clearly for what it is, our mind distorts it because your mind itself is not clean.
Yes.
Just like a distorted mirror or an unclean mirror. So, same incident you may have seen, or same person you may have heard, and I may have heard. The way we interpret things are according to our mental reception.
Exactly.
So, that way also, all of mirrors can be comparable to the state of our mind, the way we interpret things, not only process information and then interpret it. And
Yes.
then you suggested all these steps of Patanjali, particularly the yamas and niyamas, and gradually clean the mind.
Yes.
The first one, Annamaya Kosha, then Manomaya Kosha, mind.
Yes.
So I think that is the culprit. Your mind is the culprit. That's
It's both our friend and our enemy.
yes. So that is very appropriate. I enjoy that simile.
Thank you very much. This business of the Hall of Mirrors and our mind and how our mind is reflecting
Yes.
somehow is not the case. Perhaps one of the most amazing things when I first ran across it was that an anorexic, someone who has this terrible eating disorder, we look at them and we see a person that is skin and bones. They look in the mirror and they actually see a fat person
Really?
Someone who needs to lose weight, and so they eat even less. This is a truth. And if you've ever been in a hall of mirrors, there are mirrors that do that, that distort your image
What
and
do
make you look much larger, fatter than you are,
yeah.
and others that make you look much skinnier. But as I said, when that first came across this attention, that an anorexic actually sees a fat person, and what we see is that they are skin and bones and barely staying alive. That was so revelatory to me about the nature of the mind.
Exactly. So what you see is the interpretation of your mind.
Yes, through the other koshas.
Yeah.
You know, this anorexia is the mind interacting with the anamaya kosha, and it's just it's a form of insanity. But we mustn't point a finger at them and say they're bad and wrong for being like that. If we weren't like that in some way, we would be illumined this moment. So we're seeing a distorted,
Yes.
distracted reflection as well.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, Bhagirath, been waiting to hear from you.
You know, sitting amongst us is a fellow devotee who carries the name Swayam Prabha.
Uh-huh.
We call her Swayam, but she's Swayam Prabha, means
Uh-huh.
an autogenous source of light. That is
Ah,
the primordial energy. That is Atman, or whatever you call. And
yes.
this Atman, the moment it enters the body, just in the way a stick enters the water and looks bent, distorted.
Mhm.
Similarly, the moment this primordial energy enters the body, the image is distorted. The
Yes.
rest of it is all play of light. Whether it is video, it's a hall of mirror, or for that matter, hall of fame is also the same thing. It's a hall of illusion, nothing more than that.
Yes.
So this is the medium which is best illustrated when the baby is just born. When the baby is born, the baby does not know that these are my limbs. So looks at his own hands and wonders, what is this? And then gradually gets, oh, this is my hand. I can move at my will. I can make it feed me. And then all of a sudden, like Shankara says, Shankaracharya, like Shankaracharya says, a rope is misinterpreted as a snake.
Yes.
So that is where the distortion starts at the very
Yes.
process. This is the reason why in Gita, he never uses the term human beings. He says Dehinaha, Bhutana, beings. These beings means they just carry the body.
Yes. It's a verb. It's a verb. It's not a noun.
Yes, exactly. And just in the way that people carrying a dead body on their shoulders do not know, they know that this is a body. But for themselves, they say, no, but I am different. I'm not that dead body. This is the whole illusion which we play for the rest of our life.
Yes.
And it is so alarming and so startling to be awakened out of that one. And therefore, we don't want to wake up out of that one.
Foolish. It's foolish.
Well, it's true. We seem to be in love with our ability to be distracted. So it's just a matter of when, and as Sri Ramakrishna says, it happens at the right time. We become sick of being limited, sick of being always unhappy and then happy for a little bit and then unhappy and then happy. We say, no, I know there's something behind this. Without the something behind this, there could not be a reflection. There's something behind, and Vivekananda explains it so well in Jnana Yoga. what that is behind the real as opposed to the apparent man. So this is what we're alluding to in this talk today. There is a real being, the one that Thomas Merton saw, the one that Hafiz was pointing to, the one that Sri Ramakrishna spoke about, Vivekananda, Prabhavananda. So it's there. Thank you, Bhagirath. Anyone else?
Shankara, I was thinking what Uma is saying, that we are connected with the dead ones, but we do not get the satisfaction of that connection because we remember the body of the dead one. We have to get out of that one and be connected to the soul of the person.
Yes. And the way
Bodiless, disembodied soul.
that to do that, we start with their actions.
Yeah.
As my late wife said, if you want to know me, you will find me in my work.
Ah,
There you go.
She was a very successful writer.
very good.
If you want to know me, you will find me in my work.
And Buddha
That's what
said,
she
if you
said
meet
to an
Buddha,
interviewer one time.
Buddha said the same thing. If you meet Buddha after my death, kill him. Because there is no Buddha. There is no body of Buddha.
No. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything else? All right. It's a little afternoon, so I'm going to wrap it up with this. We'll end today's conversation about your shining glory with a Scottish blessing. It is found in the book Celtic Prayers and Blessings. May the blessing of light be on you, light without and light within. May the blessed sunlight shine on you like a great peat fire, so that stranger and friend may come and warm himself at it. And may light shine out of the two eyes of you like a candle set in the window of a house, bidding the wanderer come in out of the storm. And now may the Lord bless you and bless you kindly. Amen. If you are indeed blessed as this prayer asks, and may it be so, what a beacon of compassion and grace you will be, and how thankful other people will be of you. I'm going to read that blessing again. It's so beautiful. This is called a Scottish blessing. If you want to find it, you can find it in the book Celtic Prayers and Blessings, which is online. May the blessing of light be on you, light without and light within. May the blessed sunlight shine on you like a great peat fire, so that stranger and friend may come and warm himself at it. And may light shine out of the two eyes of you like a candle set in the window of a house, bidding the wanderer come in out of the storm. And now may the Lord bless you and bless you kindly. Amen. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Any final thoughts from anyone? All right. I'll close with our lovely prayer for peace. Let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters.
There be peace in the sky, the earth, and the waters.
Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
May the gods be peaceful.
May the gods be peaceful.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being.
Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So good of you all to be with us this morning. Next month, we will take up Jnana Yoga. You can find the titles of the talks online. There is a change in the one for December 27th. It will not be what is there that will need to be changed. The talk on December 27th will be the transformation of Scrooge. So, of course, we'll have our regular Christmas-related activities. December 24th, Christmas Eve worship. And then on January 1st, we will observe and celebrate Kalpataru Day. So, putting you in the Mother's loving and protective embrace, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be cheerful, may you have peace of mind. Om Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
So until next time, which the first opportunity for us to gather together again will be tomorrow evening for our reading and discussion group, Love Poems from God. And then Tuesday, of course, there's the evening class, 8 o'clock. These are 8 o'clock classes during the weekday. 8 o'clock class on Tuesday on the life of Holy Mother, Sri Sharada Devi. And on Wednesday, we've taken up the study of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. And then on Saturdays at 11 a.m., there is the class, the reading and discussion group on the book Realizing God, which is a collection of Swami Prabhavananda's talks. And then, of course, the following Sunday. Until next time.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Hari Om.
Thank you much, Shankara. Bye, Shankara.
Jai Jai.
Bye.
See you again soon.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Hari Om.